were all to Google right now the happiest place on earth, you would find a mistake because it would say the Magic Kingdom at Disney. And all of us gathered here today know that Crystal Lake was Ray's happiest place on earth. And so there could be no better place for us to gather today and to celebrate such a life well lived. I'm Phyllis. I'm Marcia's cousin, otherwise known as Marcia's little sister. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today as we celebrate just such a large, large life. A life ended too soon. As a young girl, I would come to Crystal Lake to be an au pair. And here in the mornings, I would watch Ray sit on that dock with his Detroit Free Press and of course eat only chocolate chip cookies. As a 16-year-old with a brand new driver's license, one day Ray said to me, "Come on, you're gonna learn to drive a stick shift." And as my hand shook, I said, "And what am I going to learn to drive this stick shift on, Ray?" And he said, "Well, the Porsche, of course." And I said, "I can't learn to drive a Porsche." "Oh my gosh," he said, "why? There's nothing you can do. You can't break it." And I should point out, because I'd be so remiss if I didn't say, because I know Ray is listening right now, Porsche, in case you didn't know it, was now and is forever a two-syllable word. So Ray did me a great service by instructing me so well. A few years later, I had the occasion to help a male friend move, and I was the only one who could drive a stick shift. Now to you millennials, that may not mean a whole lot, but back then, a girl driving a stick shift, it was a big deal. Thanks, Ray. So we are so delighted that all of you are here, family and friends, to help celebrate Ray's life. And may this be a wonderful celebration of sharing stories and maybe even having a toast to Ray and having family and friends gather. We'd like to begin by inviting Joanne, Ray's sister and my lifelong friend since I was 8 years old, to lead us in the 23rd Psalm.
Phyllis and I used to have Porsche battles, who got to drive it. So, Ray, we had the honor of being serviced by a wonderful hospice in Tucson, and Chaplain Murray said this with Ray, and he squeezed his hand. And so I know that he's listening again as I say this. And if anyone wants to join me in the 23rd Psalm, please feel free. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. They preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. They anointeth my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
And that was exactly the version that Ray liked best, because we talked about that. So we'll turn the mic over to Marcia.
I don't fall down the stairs. Good morning. We're here to honor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We're here to honor Ray Foresman, a very complex man. I'd like to tell you some things that I learned about him in the almost 52 years that we were married. I was not his first love. His first love was the law. He wanted to be a lawyer since he was 14 years old. And I recently found a 4-page essay on lawyers that he had written and why he wanted to pursue the career. In his essay, he noted that there were 200,000 lawyers in the United States and only 4,000 of them were women. He surmised the lack of females was that few women had the personal characteristics to become a good lawyer. Marianne, I'm glad you beat that out of him. Ray loved law school. Who loves law school? He loved law school. He loved the excitement of the courtroom. When he tried a case, he gave his opening and his closing statements without notes. He thought he needed to talk right to the jury. Of course, all week he'd fret. Was he doing a good job? Was the jury listening to him? Why didn't his client shut up? But on the last day of the trial, in the last part of the afternoon, I would get a phone call and the voice on the other end of the phone would say to me, "Who's the greatest attorney you ever knew?" And then I knew he'd won his case. He also loved being a lawyer for the auto dealers in Michigan. Thank you, Terry Burns. The only problem was he felt it was his solemn and moral duty to purchase a car from every dealer he had ever represented. One day we sat down to try and make a list of all the automobiles and trucks that he had owned, and we lost track at 200. He was a clone of his father. Pete Foresman, of blessed memory, would get up, dress in a suit, put his fedora on his head, jump into his Cadillac, and he would rule the world. Ray would get up in the morning, put his cowboy boots on, his cowboy hat, his Wyatt Earp duster, get into that Porsche, and he knew he had the world by the tail. Like Dad, the most important thing in his life was family, even like my family. He loved Grandma Shar and Papa, and he thought Phyllis and Howard were really my brother and sister. He thought my Aunt Elaine was the most remarkable woman he had ever met. He once called my brother St. Alan. I said to him, I thought he was being a smartass, and I said to him, "Why did you call my brother St. Alan?" And he said to me, "Because he's the only person who can handle you and your mother at the same time." Of course, his joys were his children. He reveled in their accomplishments, whether it was on the ballet stage or in some sporting event. He was a little harder on Cheryl than he was on Joe because he thought girls could get into more trouble than boys could. But you fooled him, didn't you, Joe? Seriously, Ray was so proud of the way the two of you overcame the challenges in your life and became the hardworking, compassionate, and loving children that you are. When Chuck asked for Ray's blessing to marry Cheryl, he immediately became a second son. And then Skylar and Brinley arrived. One time Cheryl said to me, "I know I have reached my destiny in life. I've given my parents two grandchildren." And I cannot tell you the number of times he told me every day that he loved being Babu. That's what they called him, Babu. He loved them. He would do anything for them. Next to his children and his grandchildren, he loved his nieces and nephews. Heck, he even loved your spouses. He thought you were the smartest, most talented, most beautiful children in the world. And judging from the comments that you've made on Facebook, you thought he was pretty cool too. I am so glad that I didn't know about the dirty jokes and the inappropriate comments that you have all spoken about. I would have been horrified. Ray had a very special relationship with his baby sister. Joanne was born when Ray was 14, and there were nights he'd walk the floor with her when Connie was tired and Pete was out of town. Pete was out of town a lot. Now, Pete's biggest compliment to a woman, now don't shoot the messenger, Dad would say, "That woman thinks like a man," and that was his biggest compliment. Ray's biggest compliment to anyone in the family was, "Dad would be so proud of you." And Dad, where are you, Joanne? Dad would have been so proud of the way that you have grown into such a remarkable woman. Nancy and Linda, I'm afraid Ray took you for granted. He took for granted that when he came to your house, he would have a delicious meal, lots of laughter, and best of all, he could pick himself up from the table like the king he thought he was, go into the living room, and never lend a hand to clean up. You spoiled him rotten. But he really loved you because you took care of the brothers. The brothers. One of Ray's favorite movies was Wyatt Earp. In the movie, one of the actresses says, the brothers, why does it always have to be the brothers? Jim and John, I hope you know how proud he was of you both. He knew there wasn't a finer judge in all the world than his brother John. And Jim, you once took him to a golf outing sponsored by your client. When Ray got home that night, he said, my brother Jim is so smooth, he's just like Dad. And there was that ultimate compliment. So he delighted in all of your achievements until it came to the golf course. And then it was war. He never could get over the fact that the two of you were better athletes than he was. But I will tell you, the greatest day of his life was when the three of you had played 18 holes of golf, and you were probably also playing with Kent. And he bounded in the house and he said, I beat both of my brothers! And then he got quiet and he said, well, they were so pissed off at their terrible games, I don't think that they noticed that I beat them. I think the three of you will be playing King of the Mountain for eternity. And all of the rest of you who've come today, each and every one of you have had a special relationship with Ray. And I thank you so much for coming and honoring his memory. Thank you.
Joe, come on up and share.
No. It's okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys all for coming today. Wow. You never really think you're ever going to be here, do you? Well, I don't really like to take notes or write things down. I just like to talk. Not very much, but all of you here had your own special relationship with my dad. It's different than what I had, different than what any of us had. And, you know, we all have stories. We're all going to be telling a lot of stories for the next few days. But I wanted to share a few that it pretty much will tell you what my dad meant to me. When I was a kid, we used to come up here all the time, and we used to go fishing. And I need all the little kids to cover their ears. Earmuffs. I'll do my best to keep it clean, but we were fishing out on Lake Michigan one time. It was just the two of us, and we were driving the boat in. He let me drive, and he always let me drive. And I was cruising in, and we were going into the harbor, and there was another boat coming over here. And I was going kind of that way, going right at him, and we got about 20 feet away from him or something like that, and we knew that we were not in a good position. And the guy started kind of yelling at us, and my dad started yelling back, and they started going at it a little bit. And the guy he basically just said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And my dad looked at him. He kind of brushed me aside, kind of took the wheel. He looked at the guy and he said, "You know, it's a big effing lake." He turns the wheel, starts to putter out. The guy's yelling back at him. I don't even know what. And as he's pulling away, he looks at me. He goes, "You know, you totally cut that guy off, right?" Well, he was always looking out for us. Most of you guys know his sense of humor. You know how dry he could be and how just in the moment he could be. You know, and there's going to be so many stories like this. I mean, Nick is lucky he didn't get sacrificed at our at our Seder one night. But one of the funny, my mom doesn't let me tell the really funny story because it's not a good one, but I won't tell that one. But when we used to come up here, when we bought this place in 1985, we started coming up here on weekends and in winter. And there was one February that we came up here for the weekend, and when we would come up here, the house, it was a cottage at the time. Don't ever call it a cottage now. You will be haunted for the rest of your life. It's a house. But back when we bought it, it was a cottage. And we would come up here, but we had to turn the power on. We had to turn all the everything on. Then we had to go out for a while and let it heat up because it took a couple hours. So we would go over to the Cold Creek Inn, and I don't remember if Mom was with us or Cheryl was with us this particular time. And we went to the Cold Creek Inn. As we're driving there, there's a house up on the hill right around the corner of Crystal Drive that had Christmas lights up still. And like I said, it was February probably, and didn't pay much attention to it. We just saw it and kept driving on. We went to the Cold Creek. He had a few beers, so he asked me to drive home. I don't know if I had my license or my permit or whatever. And we're driving home, and we're coming around the bend, and he starts rolling down the window. And I'm trying to figure out why he's rolling down the window. I didn't really understand what was going on. It's 20 degrees outside. What's he doing? And as we get to the corner, he sticks his head out the window and yells at the top of his lungs, "Merry effing Christmas." But that was his sense of humor. It was just in the moment, unexpected. I don't really want to take up too much time. I'm not going to talk much more. But as you guys all know, I live in Las Vegas now. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't had his sage-like advice on gambling. When I was 4 years old, we would pick football games. And he came into my room one morning, beautiful morning, and said, "All right, I'm going to give you the Packers against the Bears plus 3.5 points for $1." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "All right, well, you owe me $1. The game was played last night, and the Bears won by 4. And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, it's your first lesson in gambling. Don't ever bet on a game that's already been played unless you know the outcome." Well, sad to say, I waited. I was a sleeper. I waited and I waited. And it was only about 4 years ago when things were starting to get bad, and 3 or 4 years ago, and we were in Tucson and we were watching ESPN, and Michigan had played in the basketball tournament earlier that day and had beaten Texas by about 19 points. And we had talked about it earlier, but they hadn't actually showed that. And they showed a little bracket that showed Michigan and Texas, and then if you looked way over to the right, it showed that Michigan had moved on. But you didn't actually see that. He saw that and he said, "Michigan and Texas, do you think we have a chance against them?" Now, part of me thought, you know what, the mind is starting to go, this would be a really cruel time to do something. And then I thought, what the hell? I'm not going to get another opportunity. So I looked at him and I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll give you Texas and 18 points. And he said, "Well, what's their ranking?" And I said, "Well, they're number 7. He said, "Okay, I'll take that bet." And I said, "Well, you owe me $100. That's what it was for, because the game was played earlier today, and Michigan won by 19. He started howling with laughter, running through the house. Marcia, your son got me back after 42 years. Got me to bet on a game that's already been played." It's one of the happiest times I've seen him, and it was absolutely hysterical. But you know, he had one of the best senses of humor that everybody that spent time with him knows that. And you guys are going to hear about the Rundles. You're going to hear about all these crazy, the Patriots. We can't even talk about that. But you know, my dad was really one of a kind, and everybody who knows him knows that. And I'm gonna miss him forever. I'm gonna love him forever. And thank you guys all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Boy, these Foresmans are an articulate bunch, aren't they? I'd like to invite Ray's brother, John, to come and share a few words with us now.
Thank you, Phyllis. Notice she says these Foresmans are an articulate bunch before she brings me up here. What have I got? You know, I got to look forward to that. And then one of the nice things about going third or fourth or whatever is a lot of things that I was going to say have already been said. So I can be short. I had a couple things that I did want to say. I'm John, Ray's brother, but I'm also Morgan. I've been known as Morgan for several years, and as we've already talked about, Ray, when Ray and Marcia went to Arizona, Ray became really enthralled with Wyatt Earp. He probably knew more about Wyatt Earp than any historian. He knew about the brothers and the family, and Ray was big on brothers and family. If you saw a picture of Ray, especially there was one where he had his cowboy hat on, his cowboy boots, and a long duster, he looked more like Wyatt Earp than Wyatt Earp. and he loved it. So we called him Wyatt. He called me Morgan. And I thought, well, Morgan's a nice name. I'll go along with Morgan. I was a little disillusioned when I looked into the history a little bit and found that Morgan was the first Earp brother to get gunned down. He lied face down on a pool table. That's how he ended up. And I thought, could I be another brother? But I stayed Morgan, and Jim became Doc. Doc Holliday was not a brother, but he was a relation to Wyatt. And I think it was on the 12th tee of Crystal Mountain that Ray made Kent Rosicki an honorary brother because we needed somebody for Virgil. Kent played a lot of golf with us, and so, okay, Kent's been a brother for quite a while now. So that was our history with Wyatt, and it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun for Ray, especially in his later years when it was something he could fantasize on and he could enjoy, and he didn't have to get worried about what he didn't remember. So that was good. Ray and I were born 16 months apart. He would tell you he's the oldest and better looking. I couldn't argue with that. I knew he was older. But we grew, because of that, we grew up together. We were in the Boy Scouts together. We were, especially grade school, junior high, we played neighborhood sports all the time. And of course, we played sports in high school on the same teams, except I had a habit of playing 2 games and having to have knee surgery. So, but we were on the same teams, and we just we have never lost the closeness that we had when we were little. I wanted to say a couple of specific things about Ray. Some of them have been said already about his sense of humor and his law practice. But when Ray, I think as Marcia said, when Ray was a little, I thought, I even heard it before he was 14, he said he was going to be a lawyer. And he stuck to that. I said I was going to be a truck driver. That didn't work out. But Ray became an outstanding lawyer and an outstanding person. And I think that when all of us are thinking about Ray now, we're feeling bad because he had this terrible illness and it went on for a number of years and it finally took his life. But we have to remember, Ray had a great life. I mean, he had a good life. He worked hard, and he was a great lawyer. I'm not going to touch on that any more than it has already, but he's been an outstanding lawyer. And he was very successful. He had, already been talked about his Porsches. He had, I don't know how many Porsches. He's outdone me with the 200 cars. I couldn't get close to that. And I've been accused of having that as a bad habit. But I remember one time Ray was doing a lot of work for a Chevrolet dealer, and so he felt he had to buy a Corvette. You know, what a tough break having to drive a Corvette for a little while. But it wasn't a Porsche to him, but it was a Corvette. Plus, he and Marcia bought this cottage here. They've turned it into this beautiful home. They have a beautiful home in Arizona. They've gone on a lot of, they've traveled the world, often with Jack and Margot Restick, who were here, Ray's roommate. Jack was Ray's roommate at Michigan. They've gone on river cruises in Russia, in Europe. They did what they wanted to do. So Ray had a great life, and that's what I remember Ray for, other than the close relationship we had. One other thing I wanted to say is that Ray was a natural leader. When we were growing up, the kids in the neighborhood probably wouldn't have played as many sporting events if it wasn't for Ray, because Ray was always the one that said, okay, today we're going to play football down at Lauren's house, we're going to play baseball here, we're going to go on the river, play hockey. He organized everything. He got into high school. He had a group of friends that were really good kids, and they were all smart, and they all had great sense of humor. And they got in a little trouble at school because of their sense of humor and the fact that they had this clique. They were like a cartel. And I remember the biggest thing, they got thrown out of English class a lot. And I think that Mr. O'Leary liked their humor, but sometimes they were taking over the class. So they're gone. And one day there was two of them acting out a bit, and Mr. O'Leary said, okay, you guys are gone, get out of here. And Ray said, sir, now they had to say sir in those days, you know, sir or ma'am for your teacher. Ray stood up and said, sir, I didn't do anything, but can I go too? But the interesting thing about that is they all had nicknames for each other. There were, and I don't remember them all. There was Chico and Gino. But you know what Ray's name was? Boss. He was the boss. They called him the boss because he was the leader. And that's the way it was. And I'll tell you, the reason that we're all here at Crystal Lake today, which is, we've been talked about, it's been talked about, this is Ray's happy place. I feel the same way. I love Crystal Lake. The reason we're here is because of Ray. Mom and Dad quit coming up here when I was in college, and for a number of years they didn't come. Well, before long, Ray and Marcia are out of school. Ray says, hey, we're going up to the lake, rented a cottage. Oh, okay, so they rented a cottage down the road here. Linda and I, we rented a cottage down the road. Even Mom and Dad rented a cottage down the road. Jim and Nancy rented a place over on the other shore, and Joanne's in-laws had a place down the road. We're all back at the lake, and it wasn't long before Ray and Marcia bought this. Was a cottage then. Jim and Nancy bought a place, and our kids have grown up here in the summer on Crystal Lake because of Ray. And all the time, all the summers we're here, Ray took care of all the kids. He had the Summer Olympics every year for our kids. One year he had he had Nick and Joe and Matt run to Buellenbach. Seriously. Now, Matt was about half the size of Nick and Joe, so he had to take about 3 steps for every step that Nick and Joe took. But he did it, and they all did it. They all came back, and I don't know who they got gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, whatever. And the other kids they'd have to run around the cottage, they'd throw things and do the javelin or whatever. So Ray did all that, and to all the kids, this was Uncle Ray. And he had he even had a family golf tournament. He found a cup somewhere that said Volrath on it. I don't know what Volrath is, but we had the Volrath Cup golf tournament. And Ray handicapped it. Everybody got a certain number of strokes, and it was fair. Ray didn't win very often. He could have given himself more strokes, but if you played well, you had a chance of winning. If you didn't play well, you didn't. So we had that for a number of years, and finally, Ray had a good day, and he won the tournament. Everybody was happy. And Linda would paint the names on the Volrath Cup. Ray, winner 19, whatever it was, what was the year. So Ray did those things, and Ray was the leader. And I think my son Nick kind of talked to Marcia, but kind of brought that out a little bit a while ago, and he said something about, I remember growing up and hearing Uncle Ray telling all these stories about Papa Pete and Grandma Connie and all the relatives, Aunt Sink, I don't even know who Aunt Sink was. But Nick says, you know, we're going to be all sitting around, and what are we going to be doing? We're going to be telling Uncle Ray stories. And that's the way it's going to be. Now, I have to say, I grew up with Ray. I knew a lot of these stories. But this weekend, I've heard Uncle Ray stories that I didn't hear before. And some of them were from my kids. So how did I not know those? So my daughter said, you got to tell Uncle Ray stories. Well, I'll just tell you one. It's just kind of Ray's reaction. We were in high school, and Ray broke his ankle playing baseball. I don't know where I was, because we played baseball together. It must have been like a class party or something. They went out and played baseball. Well, we get a phone call home. Ray broke his ankle. Oh, geez. You know, and I'm upset. Ray's going to be in pain. He's going to be upset. He's going to be nervous. It's, oh, man, this is going to be terrible. Well, I don't know who brought him home, but I'm sitting there, and I'm pacing the floor. All of a sudden, this big green car comes home. Ray had a 1952 or 53 Pontiac sedan, which had been our grandfather's. And so it was like a tank. And here comes this car coming around, and so it's coming in the driveway. Why run to the back house? I go out the back, and here he is sitting in the back, and I could see him sitting with one leg up on the back seat, and I don't remember if it's right leg or left leg, but he's sitting there. And so I rush to the car, and I'm nervous, and I want to comfort him and all that. So I open the door, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and he said, I wish it was you laying here instead of me. So right away, I knew he was fine. He was fine. But Ray and Wyatt, we're going to all miss you. You'll always be a part of us. And the kids are going to carry on the tradition from Uncle Ray and Uncle Ray's stories. We miss you, buddy.
When Ray went to that place that we have this Go Blue thing here for, he found two loves. Marcia, of course, which changed all of our lives, and he found his lifelong best friend, Jack Restrick. So I'd like to ask Jack to come up and say a few words.
I was just a poor corporate lawyer, so I can't speak like Ray would here. Can't do that, but Ray and I both started at the University of Michigan in 1960. We met in the dorm the first week we were there and became fast friends. Remember in the fall of '60, we stood 11 feet from John F. Kennedy when he announced the Peace Corps. And when we graduated, Lyndon Johnson, who had just become president, announced the Great Society. So we went through a lot during those years, and we had a lot of fun in between. Ray was more popular than me. He was ran the radio station. He started out as a disc jockey, became general manager eventually. I remember as a disc jockey, he personally took responsibility for Moon River becoming the biggest song of the year. He played it every other song. The other important thing at the radio station was a funny redheaded girl from Toledo came in our sophomore year, heard his voice on the radio, said, I gotta meet this guy. So she went over and became a record librarian and stalked him for God, I don't know how long. So we had great times in the dorm. We spent 3 years in the dorm because me and my roommate, and Ray was later my roommate, realized the three of us would never get in the same fraternity, so we stuck it out in the dorm for 3 years and then in an apartment. And we had a great time there. One of our favorite games was baiting the jocks, because our dorm somehow got fed with at least 2 on every corridor. So some of our favorite things were 2 of the guys at the end who actually made the team. When they went to bed, the one in the end would go in, tell his roommate who was bigger than him, "Now, I'm going to bed, the light's out, do anything you want now because you're not going to turn the light on again and you better not bother." So one night when they did that, he was in bed, the other guy went to bed. We said, "We'll turn the light off later." So on the way out, one guy hid under the desk, one guy hid in their closet, and the other person who was supposed to close the door stayed inside. So we waited about 5-10 minutes. Then the guy who stayed inside opened the door, said, "Oh, you guys asleep? Sorry." Slammed the door and left. And Vic, the guy, said, "Don, didn't you lock the door? Get up there." So Don got up and locked the door. So as soon as we waited another 5-10 minutes, the guy crawled up under the desk, went over, unlocked the door. I can't remember which was Ray and which was me. Unlocked the door, opened it up, flipped on, like, "Oh, you guys are asleep, sorry." Closed the door. So Vic got up, said, "You can't even close the door, Biddy." We went over, locked the door. And one of us who was in the closet and came out, opened the door, flipped the light on, and said, "What's wrong with you guys?" And by then there were 10 guys in the hall. But I think Ray was behind that one. And the other one where we got another couple jocks down the hall. They were all from Chicago and thought they were the toughest guys in the world. And they were the place all the jocks gathered. So they all went out to rush fraternities. So while they were gone, we went in and removed the slats from under the mattress and set it so it just sat there. We opened the windows. This was dead of winter. We took all light bulbs out. And some genius, I don't know who, said, "Why don't we take out the part on the phone where you talk into it?"
Right.
So they came back and walked about 5 minutes, sat on the bed, collapsed. Chilly wind, it's almost like seeing in there. They closed the door, finally found the light bulbs and put them back together, and the phone rang. So one of the guys picks it up, and he can't hear a thing. He can talk to it. And he hangs it up again. Phone rings again. Picks it up. Who the hell is this? Nothing. So he hangs it up. Third time called. He just wore a blue streak. Turned out to be his fiance. So we had a real good time. When I got to our apartment, we bought a 1949 Ford, which Marcia saw a lot more of than I did. And it finally died. Our other roommate backed it off the edge of our parking lot, so it almost fell on the parking lot below it. Well, we had a great time. We both went to law school, separate law schools. After law school, we lived in Jackson, Michigan, and they lived in East Lansing, so we still saw each other regularly. And then I took off for California and other parts, and traveled around for the next 40 years. But we saw each other many Thanksgivings, New Year's. Last 5 or 6 years, we've done it every year. And last 5 or 8 years, we've traveled the world. Several of the trips Marcia mentioned, we were there. And he was just a great guy and leader of the pack, and I enjoyed every moment with him. I'm sorry he's gone. Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. And we have heard so much about Ray being such an accomplished attorney. I suspect we're going to hear even more of that very soon. And I would ask John Yeager to come up, one of Ray's partners, and share some things about Ray with you.
I'm John Yeager. I'm a partner in the firm of Willingham and Cote, and my main focus is to talk about Ray's cars, because if I tell you about how much Ray meant personally, I don't do well at talking at funerals, and I probably wouldn't do well. I will tell you that Ray was a man of integrity as a partner in the law firm, and many of us who are partners today owe it to Ray's ability at firm building. Some lawyers can build books of business. Ray wanted to build a firm, and he wanted other people to be promoted, and I was the beneficiary of that. But my celebration point is that when I joined the firm in 1978, Ray had a metallic green 911 coupe, and one of the features of it was, because most of Ray's special cars had some special quality, and this one had leather Recaro tan seats, and they were, the reason why you get Recaro seats was that they were an option. They originally were seats for racing, and they adapted them to cars. I think the car came with Recaro seats, and the Recaro seats were that if either your body had to give or the seat had to give, it meant your body was going to give, so that you would be implanted in the seat while it was going around corners and doing other things that might otherwise be dangerous. That was a special car, and one of the things Ray told me about was that in shopping for a Porsche, then you take a screwdriver and take the cover off the headlights and you look for rust, because you would never ever buy a Porsche that had any rust. And I think that's said a lot about Ray and about his focus on quality. It was very important to him. For some reason that car parted, and the next one I remember was a Volkswagen Scirocco. And cars were important to Ray, so were car dealers. And he had an enabler in Wayne Williams, who found that Volkswagen had come out with the front wheel drive sedans that were water cooled. And the Scirocco was a sports sedan, and I think that Wayne made it a point to look out for Ray and get him that car. I think somebody in the firm, staff person, ended up buying that one. The next one that was special was the Porsche 944, which was a water-cooled front-engine rear transmission car, and I think that was another enabling of Wayne Williams to get Ray that car, because it was early in the 944s coming out. They were special. And the other memory I have of that was Ray and I going to a small trial in Jackson for a dealer that a manufacturer wanted to end the franchise for, and Ray represented a lot of auto dealers. And a low point in the trial was when the manufacturer's attorney asked our client if he'd been drinking that day already. But the car was a unique car. It was special at the time. There weren't a lot of people that had them. Ray did. I remember the black Corvette. That was an auto dealer relocation case we were involved in, representing some Chevrolet dealers, and I think that Ray felt obliged to drive a Chevrolet, because they were Chevrolet dealers. But I do remember the black Corvette. The last probably special 911 was a gray metallic 911 Coupe Carrera. And Carreras were something when Porsche came out with a model that time. There was something special about it. This one had a big engineering upgrade, and it was, I believe, the last 911 that Ray had. But I remember the 911 Carrera Coupe, the metallic one. I think he had a Lexus Sport Coupe for a short time, and the last Porsche I remember was a white Cayenne SUV, which kind of seems unlike Ray to have a Porsche SUV. Something is wrong to not have a 911. So that when Ray then got Toyota Avalon, I think that it signaled to me, well, Ray's ready for retirement. Doesn't have a 911 or a Porsche. So the cars were special. Ray was a special partner, a special person, and they reflected his emphasis on very high quality in everything that he did.
An amazing group of speakers, and what wonderful stories about our Ray. I would like to invite anyone else who wants to share a story either to come on up and grab the mic or just stand up where you are. Shirley, come on and grab the mic. make sure.
I want to tell you how I met Ray. I was sitting on my couch on a Saturday morning reading the paper and looking at the wanted ads. I had 6 children. They were all in school, and I was lonely out in the country. My husband moved me from the city to the country, and I'm not a country girl. So it said, housekeeper wanted, and the phone number. So I said, I'm going to call it. So I did. And he said, can you come out and talk to me? And I said, sure. I said, when do you want to meet? And he said, well, how about this afternoon? And I said, well, okay. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I went out and I talked to him, and he said, I have 2 children. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, I have 6. And he says, well, he says, you got more than I do, but that's okay. So we got to talking, and he says, I think you're hired. And I said, okay. And he says, when do you want to start? And I said, well, how about Monday? And he said, well, I was thinking more about Sunday. And I said, no, I'd have to, Sunday's my day off because I go to church all the time. And he says, okay, Monday morning. So I did. So I came out and I met Joe and I met Cheryl. Cheryl was 11 years old. So we had good times. We had bad times with those 2. Because Joe would hog the bathroom all the time, and Cheryl would say, Shirley, tell Joe to hurry up. And I said, okay, Joe, your 5 minutes is up. Now, come on. So we got along good, and we had good times. We had bad times. I had to set Joe here and Cheryl over here a lot of times, too. So I always thought, gee, I'm going to work for this man, and there's never a woman in his house. I didn't meet Marcia for 3.5 months because he said, she's on the road again. And I thought, oh, is she a salesman? So then he explained to me she worked for the correction department and everything. And I think he was up north then, wasn't you that time? So one day I'd go to work. I'd be there at 8 o'clock, so he'd go out the house, and the 2 kids and I would sit and get them ready for school. And so this one day, this woman comes down the stairs, and I thought, oh, that must be the wife. So we chit-chat, and she asked me how I was getting along and everything, and I said, fine and everything. And she says, well, he seems to like you. And I said, well, good. So as school went on, Kristen and Cheryl would always come over, and they'd have their little arguments too, and I'd say, now girls, listen, let's get together here. So then it came, Cheryl wanted to go to work. And I'll never forget this from day one. She comes with this application. She was going to get a job. She had it all filled out. And she said, would you read it for me? And I said, yeah. And it said, in case of emergency, who do you call? And she said, 911. And I said, Cheryl, don't you want him to call your dad or your mother? And she says, well, they always said emergency, call 911. But we had good times, and Marcia's family was always so good to me, especially Annie Elaine. I got to know her real well, and Marcia would talk, and Marcia is a wonderful baker, I'll tell you. So I went to Arizona with her. She was more worried about this moving van get out to Arizona with her piano. And soon as they unloaded that piano, she had to get the banging on it. And she is a marvelous player. But we had good times, and I miss her a lot from down there. Then she introduced me to the Sampers. And Marianne and Bob, you know, we get along too. Bob and I had our ups and downs, and I think, you know, if I'm not doing something right, let me know, because I want to do it right. But I miss Bob. And I know Bob and Ray's together, and we'll have good times too. But Marcia, keep in touch.
Well, I don't know who could possibly follow Shirley, but is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Mayor, of course.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Ann Samper. Most of you know me for a long time. I became friends with Marcia and Ray 45 years ago because I started working as a kind of a clerk, kind of a gopher person at Willingham and Cote at that time. And Ray and Marcia became really close friends, Bob and mine. And for decades, we did everything together. Bought cottages up here, traveled together. Ray and I worked together. We were and have been and still are very, very close friends. And Ray was also, besides my good friend, my mentor at the law firm, because although I started as a runner, I went out east for a while to paralegal school. I came back and talked my way into working at Willingham and Cote as a paralegal. They'd never had one before. And then I went to law school and worked full-time at the firm, went to law school at night, and practiced litigation with Ray, and eventually became a partner and president of the law firm, as he had been before me. And he was my mentor all of those years. We had a lot of fun practicing law together back in the days when it was fun to practice law. Not so much after a number of years, but he was my mentor and he was my partner, and he was one of the best friends that I've had in my life for so many reasons. But I just, I'm so grateful. I am who I am in part because of Ray, and certainly from my career. He was a huge influence, and I loved him dearly. I'm just going to tell a couple of quick stories too about Ray's humorous side. Actually, all of our humorous side when we were very young. My brother Bill and his wife Judy and our friends Doug and Sue and Marcia and Ray and Bob and I traveled a lot together years ago and did some cruises together and so forth. And a couple of the funniest things we did on these cruises was, back in those days, they would have these dress-up parties. And we were just talking this morning, the 8 of us one time were on a cruise together, and Doug, who is 6'8", became Snow White, and the rest of us were the 7 dwarfs. And so we all, and Ray didn't need a lot of urging to do this, we all dressed in pink tights that we got somewhere and made these paper tunics that we had, and we each carried some symbol of one of the dwarfs. And I was trying to remember this morning. My guess is that Ray was goofy? What was Ray? I don't remember. But I know that I know my husband was sleepy because it was a joke that he slept everywhere he went on our trips and stuff. But I can't remember. But anyway, so that was absolutely a riot, because we walked into this huge dining room at Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs with Doug singing "Someday My Prince Will Come." It was hysterical. And we got first prize. We did. And another trip we were on with Marcia and Ray on a cruise, we went to another similar party. We decided to go as the Roman Empire. So for that one, all of us dressed in togas, and you know, Ray had his headpiece thing and his toga, and he was a big part of it. And my husband Bob went as a Roman column. And they built this column around him with a thing on the top. But anyway, we had great times traveling together, having fun together, you know, all 8 of us. Very much, even more in terms of number of times with Ray and Marcia. I became part of their family. They became part of my family. Ray was a magnificent person in so many ways, and a complicated person, as Marcia said, a complex person. It's so wonderful to hear the stories I didn't know about him too, and on all, you know, all the different aspects of his life. I mean, that, when you look at it, is a life worth living, and he certainly was a man who had a good life and a life worth living, and I will miss him terribly.
Alec, are you standing because you're going to come
just
and
to let
speak? Okay.
Mary Ann pass.
All right. Would anybody else like to share a story? And there will be plenty of time as we eat, drink, and celebrate Ray's lives that we can share more stories. So I'll invite, oh, one more, come on. Absolutely.
I'm Ellen Fivenson, and Marcia and I share a religion. Marcia and I share a religion. Ray and I also shared a religion, the Michigan Wolverines.
Go blue.
I was one of the few women that was allowed to watch a game with him because I would yell and scream and be just as intent as he was. And we brought them to victory many times. So just on behalf of the University of Michigan Alumni Club of Grand Traverse, of which I'm on the board, I just want to say a little prayer. Go blue and go Ray.
Anyone else? Okay, then I'll invite Joanne back up to lead us in prayer and share a poem.
I just wanted to say how extremely grateful and filled with gratitude I am for, first of all, being born into this amazing family. I think the one thing that John said it, I think we all know it, family was everything to Ray, and we all share that, and we all love being together. 2 years ago, 2 summers, 41 of us all together, sharing an amazing, amazing time. And even though he's not here today, we are at 41 with the birth of John, our littlest one. And I know he's smiling down, and he's with us. He's with us, and he's enjoying this, and we have this beautiful day. So thank you all for sharing this with us. It's amazing. So I want to close a little bit different. Usually you close with a prayer, but I'm going to close. We can all say the Lord's Prayer together, please. And then Marcia received a book from a dear friend. We all wonder. We'll say the prayer, and then I would like to close as a nice send off to Ray with this lovely poem. So if you want to share with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we have forgiven those against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So, we all wonder where we go. And I think each one of us has a belief in the afterlife, or what our version of heaven, or what happens. So Marcia received this lovely book, and it gave her a great sense of peace. So she asked me to read it to all of you. It's quite lovely, and I think it's a nice send-off. And then I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. The next place that I go will be as peaceful and familiar as a sleepy summer Sunday and a sweet, untroubled mind. And yet, it won't be anything like any place I've ever been or seen or dreamed of in the place I leave behind. I know I won't know where I am going, and I won't know where I have been as I tumble through the always and look back toward the when. I'll glide beyond the rainbows, I'll drift above the sky, I'll fly into the wonder without ever wondering why. I won't remember getting there, somehow I'll just arrive, but I'll know that I belong there and will feel much more alive than I have ever felt before. I will be absolutely free of the things I held on to that were holding on to me. The next place that I go will be so quiet and so still that the whispered song of sweet belongings will rise to fill the listening sky with joyful silence and with unheard harmonies of music made by no one playing, like a hush upon a breeze. There will be no room for darkness in the place of living light, where in ever-dawning morning pushes back the dying night. The very air will fill with brilliance as the brightly shining sun and the moon and 500,000 stars are married into one. The next place that I go won't really be a place at all. There won't be any seasons, winter, summer, spring, or fall, nor a Monday or a Friday, nor December nor July, and the seconds will be standing still while hours hurry by. I will not be a boy or girl, a woman or a man. I'll simply be just simply me, no worse or better than. My skin will not be dark or light, I won't be fat or tall. The body I once lived in won't be part of me at all. I will finally be perfect. I will be without a flaw. I will never make one more mistake or break the smallest law. And the me that was impatient or was angry or unkind will simply be a memory, the me I left behind. I will travel empty-handed. There is not a single thing I've collected in my life that I would ever want to bring except the love of those who loved me and the warmth of those who cared, the happiness and memories and magic that we shared. Though I will know the joy of solitude, I will never be alone. I will be embraced by the family and friends I've ever known. Although I might not see their faces, all our hearts will beat as one, and the circle of our spirits will shine brighter than the sun. All the good things will go with me. They will make my spirit glow, and that light will shine forever in the next place that I go. Love you, bro. Thank you.
Before we conclude, Ned Edwards is going to share a couple words from the boat group.
Just wanted to say thank you to all of you from the Classic Boats of Crystal Lake, of which our friend Ray was such an active member with Josie, and I hope you've gone out to see Josie parked out in the back of the house here. We wanted to come by today, as we did a little earlier, to honor Ray, to do our missing man formation. And I happen to be a Presbyterian minister, and Ray and I started boating together on Crystal Lake around the summer of 2007. And when he found out I was a Presbyterian minister, he wanted to let me know that he really would like to go out boating on Sunday morning more than do some other things. And I should say thank you to Kirk Smith for leading our boat parade today. He was appropriately dressed and in the first boat that led us by the tent here. And Kirk knows his story. Had a number of people in my congregation who were a little concerned about the fact that I like to go boating on Sunday. And I had to remind them that when Jesus was talking to his disciples, and this is the story I told to Ray to make him not feel so like a holiday Lutheran, but which he was. But I said, you know, Jesus never once said to his disciples, go to church. Never once did he say it. But he said to his disciple at least 7 times, get in the boat. So we remember Ray, those of us in our boating group and those of us in the Water Wonderland chapter of the Antique and Classic Boat Society, of which he was an active member. We remember Ray, and we're so thankful that he got in his boat on Sunday morning. And we were thankful we could do that for him this morning. Thank you.
let's continue the celebration as we do something I know Ray would approve of. Let's have lunch. And everything is set up behind me. And if you'll just kind of all form a line behind, we'll continue telling stories and sharing more about Ray.